The Dark Star. The Dark Star 5. Her curly red hair was slumped over her seatbelt and the front of the car was a crumpled, smoking mess. He approached the driver's side slowly, keeping an eye on the hood for any sign of flames. "Miss, ma'am," he was never sure how to address a woman that was mid to late 30s. "Are you okay?" And he tapped firmly on the window. She looked up at him bleary-eyed, then looked straight ahead at the smoke rising from the front of her car and then back up at him, wincing at her neck. She rubbed her shoulder for a moment before unbuckling the seatbelt and pushing the door open. "That's what I get. I'm just too damn nice sometimes," she said as she stood up and looked him in the eyes, her eyes green, shimmering and now completely focused. Michael took a step back. "Hi. Excuse me. Sorry, are you all right?" he said, stumbling on his words. God, she was gorgeous. Even after crashing into a tree, she had an undefeatable look, and as she stood up he saw she was just about as tall as him. "Damn squirrel. Fucker ran right in front of me like a lemming off a damn cliff. I mean, who ever heard of suicidal squirrels?" she said, reaching back in the car for her phone on the passenger seat. "I swerved, so I wouldn't run his cute, fuzzy ass over in this," she said, waving her hands at the destroyed front end of her car. "This is the thanks I get." She looked back at him. "I'm Nancy, nice to meet you," she said, extending her hand to shake his, which he met with a smile and a firm grip. "I'm Michael. This is my place here if you need to call someone. Signal isn't always so great up here. Otherwise, you are welcome to have a cup of coffee. I just brewed a pot," he said, trying to seem as warm and welcoming as possible. Nothing ruins one's day quite like an unexpected car wreck. "I would love a cup of coffee," she said, taking a look back at the car. "You don't think it's going to blow up, do you?" And they both stared at the smoke rising from the front end. "I mean, do you have anything important in there?" he asked half jokingly. He sincerely doubted the car was on the verge of explosion. "Nothing I can't replace," she said, and Michael led them down the driveway, up the front steps and into the kitchen. He grabbed a couple of cups from the shelf and started pouring coffee from the steaming pot in the machine. "Don't suppose there are any rental car places around here, are there?" she asked as he placed the coffee down in front of her with a container of cream and sugar. "Not here in Lee, no," he said, "but I think there is a Hertz rental up in Pittsfield." "Is that far?" "It's my first time in the Berkshires. I was heading to a B&B in Stockbridge," she said, looking back at his living room and taking a deep sip of the coffee. "It's 20 minutes up Route 7. Maybe 25 with traffic on 7 and 20. What are you going to do with the car you crashed down there?" He pointed with his thumb out the window with a hint of a smile. "The car was wrecked. I'll get it towed to the nearest shop. That thing was on its last legs anyway." She pointed to the rustic living room past the kitchen. "Nice place. You know a towing company I can call?" He smiled, looking around at his mess of a kitchen. He'd been living alone for some time now, and he didn't always keep up with the cleaning. "RWs are good. I think I've got their number around here somewhere," he said, and went to his notebook on the counter, flipping through the pages until he saw RW's towing. "Called Jimmy" in his scrawled handwriting, and slid the notebook across the table to her. "Jimmy, huh?" she said, looking up at him with a mischievous smile. "Nice handwriting," and she pulled her phone out of her pocket, dialed the number written on the crumpled pages. "Thanks," and he watched as she spoke with Jimmy, who answered on the third ring, and after a brief discussion assured her he knew right where she was and would be there in about 10 minutes to tow the vehicle back to his shop. She hung up the phone and walked into the living room, glancing at the paintings on the wall, her eyes drawn to the record player in the corner of the room. "Wow, you've got a Technics. These are classic, made in the late 70s, early 80s? This one was made in 79. My grandfather used to have one just like this when I was growing up," she said, looking down at the records stacked along the wall. "Quite the collection." "Thanks," he said, looking at the records strewn around the cabinet. He really should get them more organized, he thought. "So, Nancy, where are you from?" "You are going to laugh, but I'm a writer for a magazine in New York. We are doing a feature about an up-and-coming stand-up comic named David Davis. He recently had a Netflix special, and anyway I came up to do some research on his hometown. You know, dig up all the good dirt we can find, the last part said with a half-serious, half-sarcastic smile. Well, I may be a bit biased on that one, he said. We've been friends since we were kids. I spoke to him on the phone just last night. Not sure how much dirt you'll find, though. We had a pretty normal New England childhood, well as normal gets in New England. Although the reason he called was actually kind of strange. Strange how? She asked, her investigative juices piqued. He went on to explain the phone call with David, the strange email and what he had found in Ben's old room with Nancy holding her cup of coffee and listening intently. He walked her over to his desktop computer and showed her the icon with the blue C64 in the file folder and what had happened when he played it. That's interesting, actually, she said. I actually did a gig for a retro computer gaming magazine once, and he did a piece about the guys that made that game. They were called automated simulations or something. I have to pull up my old research files. They made some groundbreaking games and then kind of disappeared from the face of the earth. At least as far as my research goes, if I remember correctly. A loud air horn blared from outside and they both looked out the window to see RW's tow truck pulling into the driveway, just behind Nancy's wrecked car, the air brakes on the big diesel hissing as the knobby tires dug into the gravel of the roadside. They put their coffees on the kitchen table and headed out the front door to meet Jimmy, who was stepping down from the cab and waving hello. So, what was interesting about it? Michael asked as they walked down the gravel path next to his driveway. About what? Nancy asked absent-mindedly. Oh, that gaming company you mean? I'll make a deal with you. You tell me everything you can about David Davis for my BOF piece, and I'll give you all the research I did when I wrote the article for Command Prompt. That was the name of the magazine. Like I said, very retro. Do we have a deal? Michael laughed and agreed that they did. He gave her his number and told her to give him a call as soon as she got everything sorted out, and they could exchange notes over dinner. He gave a wave to Jimmy, who introduced himself to Nancy, and Michael headed back inside, giving them both a wave goodbye. After he heard the truck pull away into the distance, he sat down in the burgundy chair next to his record player and finally hit play on the Dorothy Donegan album, the stainless steel mechanism sliding the record down the spindle and the tone arm swinging over before gently touching down on the record. He closed his eyes to the sounds of a jazz concert recorded years and years ago, yet now coming alive again in his living room, and her music was so alive. She attacked the keyboard with a joy and a wild fury that would make Sir Elton John blush. It was jazz in its purest form, controlled chaos, raw emotion poured out, heartfelt melodies and wild tangents. He felt almost transported to that smoke-filled jazz club in Manhattan as he sat in his chair, nodding off to the music pouring from a wax record pressed so many years before. He was almost asleep when Luna jumped up on his lap and began kneading his stomach. She meowed a gentle meow and curled up in a ball on his lap. They sat like this, listening to the entire album, front side and back side, each song flowing into the next until the tone arm raised back up a final time and rested back on its perch. His phone rang from his pocket and he pulled it out, glancing at the caller ID. It was a number in Stockbridge. He hit the red answer button and put the phone up to his ear. "Hey Michael, it's me Nancy, the lady that crashed in front of your house earlier," she said, her cheerful voice pouring out the speaker. "I think I vaguely remember that," he said laughing. "I see you found your way to the B&B. Which one are you staying at?" "Some place called Conway's, really nice older couple, kind of the middle of nowhere though," she said, looking out the rustic metal window frame to the orchard below. "God, yeah, that place has been there forever. Did you find a rental car yet?" "That's exactly why I'm calling. I need a ride to Pittsfield to get it, if you wouldn't mind. I found the article on my laptop about that game you found. Not only that, but I could tell you what I know while we drive." "No problem, Give me a few minutes to get ready and I'll head over. I'll be there in about 35 minutes or so.